tonight to our community forum for the finalists for Kuna School District Superintendent, all of you present here and folks present online. And we want to give a big shout out to our broadcasting students who are here making it possible for folks to see this who aren't able to be here physically present. So how it's going to work tonight is our Board of Trustees has appointed a panel of community representatives to develop and ask the questions tonight. We have just an hour with these finalists, and so there will be no questions from the floor, just those asked by our panelists. So we'll start with a 3-minute introduction from our finalists. We also will ask our panelists to introduce themselves, and then they'll go into the question and answer where they'll have 2 minutes. We have a great timekeeper up here to help our finalists stay on track. So let's begin with our panelists introducing yourself. Go ahead.
My name is Brian Rezick. Been in Kuna School District since 2014. Been involved with the Superintendent's Council since 2015. Have one daughter who's a freshman at OSU who went through the school district, and a son who's a sophomore currently in the school district.
Neil Durant, lifelong resident here in Kuna. Our family's been here since 1947. I've attended every school here in Kuna. My kids, I've got right now one in high school, one in the Kuna Middle School, and our youngest is in Silver Trail.
I'm Hillary Woodland, and I'm a lifelong Kuna resident as well. Graduated from Kuna. My husband is as well, or graduated from Kuna. We have had 2 graduate, and we have 2 at the high school, and then we have 2 others that are at charter school right now, but we'll be moving into the school district soon.
Elliot Tolbert. I have a freshman in high school here at Kuna High, a 6th grader at Kuna Middle, and I am the president of the Kuna Middle PTO.
I am Carrie Larson, and we've been in this school district, it'll be 9 years next month. Proud mom of 5 boys. 2 have graduated from Kuna High School. I have freshman or sophomore twins, and then my youngest is also at Silver Trail in 5th grade.
Great, thank you. If you came in or if you missed it, there are comment cards for you. Oh, did I miss someone? Sorry. Comment cards with QR codes. If you're viewing online, within the YouTube description is the link to the forum to provide comments on the different finalists. So let's get to the introductions of our finalists, and let's start with you, Mr. Gee.
First of all, I would like to thank everybody for taking time out of their schedules to be here tonight. Spend an hour with us, listening to us discuss questions and how we think we can help the Ririe School District. My name is Jeff Gee. I was born and raised in Southeast Idaho. Started my teaching career at Bonneville High School, where I taught science, specifically earth science, biology, and physics. After that, I took a job as a superintendent in the Firth School District. I was a principal for 12 years in the Firth School District. And then for the last 7 years, I've been the superintendent in the Ririe School District over in Southeast Idaho. I've been married to my wife for 27 years now. I didn't share this earlier with the staff, but I got up this morning and put on a white shirt and my tie, and my wife looked at me and said, "I've never seen you eat in your truck and not spill on yourself." So she made me bring another shirt and tie with me just in case. I do want to report that I did not spill on myself, but she's a great lady. We have 2 daughters. Both are married. I have 2 grandsons, and I tell you what, people told me that having grandkids was the best thing in the world, and I didn't believe them until I actually had them. And I just can't tell you how great it is. I've got a 3rd one coming in July, and we're excited to have a granddaughter. As far as what I like to do when I'm not working, I spend a lot of time up in the hills. I love to hunt and fish. Most recently, my wife and I have decided that Alaska is our second home. We bought a small piece of off-grid property up there 2 years ago. I actually got a call from my neighbor last week. He told me that after a freeze up, I lost 24 feet of my dock. It's currently on its way to Russia. And hopefully when we get there this summer, the rest of it will still be intact. But again, I'm excited to be here tonight. Love to get to know each of you. I'm going to pass it on.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Marcus Myers, and I get the opportunity to serve as the Chief Academic Officer of Student Success in the West Ada School District. I've been in education 28 years, have served at a multitude of capacities, paraprofessional, elementary teacher, assistant principal, principal, region director, and a chief academic officer. And that's unique because it gives me lots of perspectives into serving a tremendous amount of people. I work with an absolutely incredible team and have the opportunity to do that each and every single day. And then I am a father of 4 children. 2 of those children were raised right here in Kuna. We lived in the Birds of Prey subdivision when it first went up a number of years ago. I lived in the White Barn Apartments for quite a while and walked my daughters down to the library right down the street from then, and had breakfast at Ben's here and every once in a while. So Kuna holds a special place in my heart that way. So I appreciate you being here tonight and taking the time out of your day. It shows that you care, and it means a tremendous amount. Along with that, I'm the husband of a school counselor. So we have many stories to tell, and we're each other's greatest support network that way. And when I'm not educating or being in the business of education and step away for just a moment, which doesn't happen very often, I do try to fly fish as often as I can. I do enjoy golfing. There's something about being outdoors, outside, where it seems like you're out in nature, hitting a very tiny ball into a very tiny hole in the astronomical feat that golfing seems to be. I do enjoy that. And then along with that, I am the son of a contractor. We grew up in a very small town, just outside of Lake Tahoe, within that area, and moved from that small town. And that is where my small town community and why I got into education exists. And then moved to the Reno area, and then from then I've had the privilege of living in the Boise area since 1996.
Thank you as well for coming out this evening. It is always wonderful to see familiar faces and new faces alike. My name is David Reinhart. I also have the honor of serving as the chief. I serve as the chief operating officer for West Ada School District. But beyond that, I'm more than what I do. I am the son of a farmer in the Midwest. I was raised in an area that looks a good deal like Kuna. In fact, when my family came and visited a few years ago, they said it looks like home, and it does. I learned the value of getting up early and working hard and respecting the land there. I am also a military veteran. I served as a young guy. I served as an enlisted guy in military intelligence, and then later in life as a Air Force chaplain on active duty. And there I really learned or really refined the love of service that my parents passed on to me. I also served in ministry, ordained ministry, for a number of years, for 17 years. And it was during that time that I began my career in education. The bishop literally drugged me by the ear, not literally, figuratively drugged me by the ear and said, I need a teacher in this Catholic school. And I said, I don't know anything about this. I wasn't trained in this. And so I come at and so I started. And I try to stay a day ahead of students, and I try to get by on a little charm, and I survived it. I did that for 6 years, either part-time or full-time, and ultimately fell in love with education. Started in private education and had the opportunity to lead a school that was failing and turn it around to an award-winning school. That was a great gift. Ministry also gave me the ability to lead and to learn how to listen and listen compassionately to people. I value that forever. I value every minute of that. I am a married man, happily married to my wife Debbie, who I met in the Air Force. She's a wonderful woman and also a veteran and works full-time at the Veterans Administration. Her and I have talked a great deal about applying here, and we are both committed to, if we're chosen to, or if I'm chosen to dive headfirst into this position. And then finally, I've been in education for 26 years. Teacher, president, superintendent, a mixture therein in private and public schools. And so it is an honor to be with you this evening, and that time includes some time in Kuna as well.
Go ahead, Brian. Why don't you start answering, asking the questions?
Thank you. The order for this first question is going to be Mr. Myers, Dr. Reinhart, and Mr. Gee. Communication is very important in this district between the community and the district, and especially between the district and the families. What are your ideas on how to grow communication with families and improve rapport with community partners not directly connected with the district?
All right, thank you, Brian. Absolutely. We should establish and set goals for increasing opportunities for voices to be heard, especially from those whom we don't usually hear from. And I'll give some reasons for that here just momentarily. But some of those strategies including not just increasing the number of community advisory groups or advisory panels, but really being creative about who we're talking to. So yes, those we would typically create, which are superintendent advisory panels or think tanks that we would sit down and meet with recurring and regularly so that people in the community know when their voices can be heard and how to do it, but then also that their voices will be listened to. So when we increase the number of those advisories, we're thinking through things like, yes, those like Kuna City Council and our mayor, but also law enforcement, fire department, and health services, and getting some of their thoughts and feedback. We have a very similar goal, which is working to better our community. And so if we had those collaborative discussions together, that might incorporate some of those additional voices. Things like CTE industry partners. We have a lot of local industry here within the valley, but right here within Kuna, it's next to Kuna itself. We could reach out to those partners and establish some communication networks, get their advice on what that would look like as well. And then, of course, church and civic organization leaders. It's important to reach out to them. Again, we share that same community goal about building up the Kuna community. So it would be a planned and intentional effort to seek those voices whom we don't usually hear from. And then, of course, to develop a communication plan that, one, celebrates the successes of Kuna, its students, and our staff. Be really specific about when we identify areas of opportunity and establish goals for that we follow up with goals. That we follow up with, here's exactly the measures we're using to identify those successes and what we're doing to generate those opportunities, and then very specifically reporting out on how we're successful. And then lastly, making it easier to connect with us through lots of varieties using technology, because it's very easy right now to connect with each other out in the community, and we need to make it just as easy for them to connect with us.
I want to start simply by saying that as a general theme, I believe communications should be timely and often. Timely and often, and maybe even if it's too often, that's okay. Communications should be not only given in the traditional formats, but the person in the superintendent role needs to show up and be present in the community. And so things as simple as being at the VFW meeting or being at the coffee shop, I think, are also opportunities for communicating with the community. There does need to be a plan, though. It can't all be casual. We're a big enough district in Kuna that we need a plan, and we need to make sure that we're communicating in multiple ways. Social media is certainly one of them, print's certainly one of them, but new ways are emerging all the time with new formats and new media that's evolving, and so we need to have a plan with multiple prongs. We need to be proactive and not reactive. And then finally, it needs to be a two-way streak. It's one thing to sit in our office and to let people know what's happening, but we have to allow for feedback from the community, even when that feedback maybe isn't popular. There might be times where we communicate something and the people that respond back, that thing isn't a popular thing, and we have to be willing to sit there and to listen and to respond, and sometimes we're going to learn something in the process. Timely and often would be my two themes.
We're getting really good about passing a mic back and forth. So I agree with a lot of things that have already been said. Communication needs to happen often. And I think we have to get to the point where we're creative in the way that we communicate with people. I can tell you as a superintendent, I've tried it all. We've done the advisory committees. We've tried to meet before school, after school. We've tried weekends. We've tried to do a lot of different things to reach out and make ourselves available so that we can hear the voices of the people. One of the things, and you're probably going to hear me say this twice tonight because we have some similar questions, but one of the first things I want to do out here in the Kuna community is get out and visit with as many people as I can. I want to visit with staff. I want to visit with community leaders. I want to visit with business owners. And when I visit with people, I want to ask them 3 questions. And those questions are, what is going well? What concerns do you have? And what can we do to build your trust in the Kuna School District? Because I think one of the most important things that communication does in a community is it does build trust. And trust is important for many different things that we do in a district. One of the things that I tried this year as a superintendent to try and be a little bit more innovative and reach a group of people that I haven't reached in the past was to host a monthly Zoom meeting. So every month, my admin team and I, we host a Zoom meeting. Each one of us select a topic that we talk about for 5 or 10 minutes, and ideas that are information that we feel like patrons would be interested to know about the district. The last 30 minutes of that meeting is strictly a question and answer session where patrons can unmute and ask a question directly or type in the chat and we'll respond. But communication, again, must happen often and early.
Thank you. Our next question is, when you make a decision that parents or patrons strongly disagree with, what is your process for ensuring their concerns are heard? And how will you remain accountable to the community you serve?
Thank you, Neil. This is a great question, and I was looking forward to answering this one as well. Ultimately, I think before we get to the disagreement, we involve people. I think back to my career, through my career in education, and the decisions that I made that maybe ruffled the most feathers or maybe generated the most feedback were the things that I didn't include other people in. And so my first answer to this is really involve the community before it even becomes a problem. I think about the fact that we just went through we redrew our school boundaries in the district that I work with now. There's not a place for more opportunities for feedback from the community, negative often and impassioned, than redrawing school boundaries. Our team, and I'm not taking credit for this, but it's been a team approach. Our team involved a large group of people. We had 6 public meetings. We answered all emails, phone calls within 24 hours. We had a very good website that answered their questions. And so I think community involvement heads some of those problems off before they happen. This is your school district. This isn't my school district. This isn't any of our school districts. This is your school district. And so you have the wisest answers often. Finally, when disagreements do happen, 24-hour return on phone calls, emails. We make an extra effort to make sure that I show up, that we show up at the games, and we're not afraid to talk to people and answer to the things that they're upset about.
So I would start this by saying that if you want to get people in an uproar in a small community, do something that affects the football team. and that was one of the first decisions I made as a superintendent as a new superintendent with the new high school principal and a new athletic director. We had some veteran teachers come to us, veteran math, veteran science, that were seriously concerned about the academic requirements that our athletes had and holding our athletes accountable for their academics. And so before school started, my first year in the district, we implemented a grade check policy that we would do grade checks every Monday. And that initially was not, it wasn't met with a lot of opposition until our second football game, where 11 of our 36 players were ineligible due to grades. We had a lot of parent meetings after that football game. And we approached those parent meetings with the idea that we were going to listen first and try and understand their concerns, and then we would explain why we're doing it and what our vision and goal was for moving forward. We were able to maintain, to hold our ground, to focus on the idea that we have student athletes and that the student part comes first. And after time, we were able to change the culture in that community to where for the last 3 years, we've been in the top 3 for schools of excellence in Idaho. If you don't know what that is, ask me afterwards because I'm almost out of time. And we've also won an academic state champion with our athletics. And so it's important that we listen to parents when we're making decisions. But we also need to make sure that we're listening to our teachers and what their concerns are as well.
I think this question speaks to the importance of knowing your community and knowing your community very well. I think that proactively, it's important to build trust through relationships before the situation arises. I think it's also important that myself, our leadership team, and the trustees remain communicative in terms of what might be popping up. What is a concern currently, what might be a concern in the future, to constantly being situationally aware, because we're having those conversations out in the community and garnering that feedback before the situation arises and that a decision needs to be made. So I think some structures and reoccurring systems in place to ensure that those feedback structures are there and the opportunity to share, yes, but a lot of that, it just comes with always being inquisitive, always asking a tremendous amount of questions, always engaging in conversations, and while those voices are being heard. I think through that, at the end of the day, a decision's going to need to be made. And although we might not necessarily agree on the outcome of that decision or what that decision might be, nevertheless, it would be important that through it we always share the why we make the decision and we stand true to that decision, because there was a process behind that decision of garnering feedback, making sure that everybody had a voice in it. And even if at the end we don't necessarily agree in that, we can definitely agree to move forward because it was a decision that was made in the best interest of kids. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, that's what parents want us to know, is that we take care of their children and we secure the futures for their children, and we help protect that and take care of that. They want to know and they want their voices to be heard. We'd want that for our kids and I'd want that for mine. I want to make absolutely sure that we create that opportunity for them.
How do you view the dynamic between the superintendent and the school board? What is your experience collaborating with elected officials even when you may not agree?
So my philosophy on this is that I work for the school board and the school board works for the community. And as far as disagreements go, everyday life is filled with disagreements. And I'm a believer in the old adage that you can disagree without being disagreeable. And so when disagreements occur, as a superintendent, I feel like my responsibility is to come to the board with all the information I have about whatever the topic is that we're discussing. I'm going to present that information. I'm going to provide the board with a recommendation. And then at that point, it's up to the board to decide what they want to do. If I disagree with the decision, that disagreement will take place in private. I believe firmly that one of the quickest ways to erode trust in a community is to have a dysfunctioning board or a dysfunctioning board and superintendent relationship. So I believe that it's important that we always have a unified front, that we're always willing to work together, but disagreement, or I should say healthy disagreement, is a part of life, and it should be a part of what we're doing as a school board and a superintendent working for the betterment of the kids here in the Kuna School District.
The dynamic between the superintendent and the trustees develops the perception of how the public views how well the school district is running. What I mean by that is it's important that we always be a united team. Again, that perception of how the district functions is a representative of how the trustees and superintendent interact. And so it's important that we, one, seek to understand that there's an opportunity for that, and that when we arrive at a decision together, it's my job to carry out the will of the community through the trustees. Again, similar to what my colleague said, I work for the trustees and the trustees work for the community. And although we may not always agree, it doesn't mean that we can't move together in a united front to show that stability, to show that we made decisions in the best interest of students and their families, and to show that together we are a team and moving forward.
Thank you, Hillary, for the question. I want to start with just a short story. When I was in the military, I had the honor and the experience of living in another country, a country where public education was not as strong. You either sent your children to private school, or if you didn't have enough money, then you kind of went to public school. That was really the attitude. That was the reality. The United States of America has this great privilege, this great protection around public education that necessarily comes about because we have elected officials serving in board positions. They govern, they hire the superintendent. They have a very tall task this evening, or whenever they choose to make that choice. The board solidifies the fact that we provide a free and equitable education to all students in our area. And that's a great honor to work with them and to work for them. And as has been said, I work for them, they work for the people, but therein lies the beauty of our country and of this great system of ours. In terms of agreeing or disagreeing, in the schools, I firmly believe that when I walk through that door, I am not red or blue, but my political party is KIDS, K-I-D-S, and so it's always working for the betterment of students, of your sons and daughters. And so my personal take on things is we're myself and the board are trying to row together. We're trying to go shoulder to shoulder for the betterment of our students, and I pledge that will be my approach.
All right, gentlemen, what specific steps will you take to recruit, develop, and retain high-quality teachers in Kuna, especially as surrounding districts are competing for the same talent?
Thank you, Elliot. One, I think our greatest message in recruitment with teachers in the Kuna is the message that this is a close-knit community, and it's a close-knit community of educators. I think people join a team to feel connected and to pay the bills, okay? Educators, though, are unique in that they're there to have an impact on kids. They come to a higher calling with that. And so when you combine those three where they feel valued as a part of a team, they're having an impact on kids, and they have the opportunity to provide for their families, there's tremendous strength in that. And so our message needs to be, come to a close-knit community. Work together with a close-knit community of educators, and in doing so, we're gonna take great care of you, you're gonna take great care of our students, and at the end of the day, our students are gonna thrive, and you're gonna have an impact, which is why you signed up to be a teacher in the first place. I think that also comes with some really well-defined processes for onboarding. When teachers are supported, they feel successful. People want to be successful. People stay in jobs that they're successful in, and through a really great onboarding and professional development process, we can create that opportunity for them. And then I think empowered teachers are teachers that stay in districts and in classrooms for a very long time. When they feel empowered to make decisions, when they feel empowered to share their voice in planning for instruction, in planning and decisions the district makes, and in the opportunity to have their voices heard, there's buy-in with that, there's empowerment with that, and there's ownership. And people stay in organizations that they feel a part of. Who's next?
Thank you for the question, Elliot. I think Kuna is at a real pivotal moment. Maybe has been at this moment for a minute, but we are at the moment where it's time for the school district to become the #1 choice in education in this area, to be a place that people want to work at because it's a great school district. I think of the fact that when I think of Kuna every single time, and I think this is a strength that we play to when we recruit teachers, educators, technicians, maintainers, all that, is that we are large enough to make a difference. This high school, these programs have enough. We have enough CTE programs. We have great benefits here that we can move the needle for our young people, plenty of opportunity, and we're small enough to care. So big enough to make a difference, small enough to care, really becomes our strength, and we play to it. We don't apologize for having 12 schools versus 100 schools. We don't apologize for not being a charter or not being a private school. We are Kuna, and I think we play to that strength and make that really the thing that attracts people here and keeps people here. I believe in my time here, I believe we hired some of the best educators and staff, many of whom are still here, and those practices can go on, and we need to evaluate the possibility of new practices, but large enough to care, small enough to make a difference.
So I have a pretty, I guess, simple philosophy on this. I truly believe that people who feel heard, valued, and supported stay with an organization. And so my simple answer to this question is that I believe that the culture you develop in your district is what keeps people in your district. And I think the culture you have in your district is also a great way to recruit teachers. This last year in our school district, we were able to hire a phenomenal 6th grade teacher, steal her away from another district. And the only reason we were able to do that is because her friend, who also teaches 6th grade for us, called her and said, "You need to come work in Ririe." If your teachers are actively engaged in recruiting for you, it makes your job as a superintendent a lot easier. And so that's where I start. As far as developing other pipelines, yeah, you need to have contacts with colleges so that you can bring student teachers in and work on that. I think if you have great paraprofessionals, you need to be working with those individuals to try and get them to take the next step and become a teacher. But also along with that, as I said, with teachers feeling supported, you've got to provide professional development and training, because I don't think great teachers want to be stagnant. Great teachers want to improve their craft every year, and so providing opportunities to do that, I also believe is a great way to build your culture and to recruit and retain quality people.
Given the complexities of funding, staffing, district growth, and the potential impact of charter school expansion, How would you maintain and strengthen successful programs such as full-time kindergarten, career and technical education, dual language, and fine arts? Additionally, how would you address programs that may be struggling, such as gifted and talented, while ensuring all students have access to meaningful and appropriate academic and career pathways?
Thank you, Carrie. It's an important question and quite a question. There are a number of areas to this. I want to make sure I hit on all of them, and I don't know that I'll have the details to go into it, but here's my number one. One, it would be my job to make sure that I'm an advocate for those programs. That advocacy includes telling the stories of the impact that those programs have on our students and their opportunities for college and career success. The other ones is with our community and with our lawmakers to continue that those resources continue, and that we can continue to use those resources to fund those programs. I think the other side of that is to share our return on investment. What I mean by that is, as we invest in those programs, to share the data, to share the stories and the faces behind the impact that that's had on students, that allows us to prioritize those programs. When we look at, we can't do everything, we can do anything, but we can't do everything. And so how do we prioritize those programs? What do we look at as leverage points that have the greatest impact on student success? How do we continue to maintain those and then build upon the programs that we currently have, including the finances and the resources in order to do so? I think in terms of the question around the struggling programs, how to address that, I'd first need to identify why that program's struggling and identify whether it's an area of resource with an area of support. Do we have the right resources in place that way? I know that's somewhat of a general response to that, but I would need to know exactly why. I know that I would dig in if that were to be the case, starting with conversations with the teachers and staff around that, starting with families around that, and then what does the data tell us about the effectiveness of that program?
There are two approaches we can take with this. The funding is complex. If you follow it all, it's very complex. But I would say about the programs listed, those programs are really some of the hallmarks of this district. I think about the expanse of CTE offered. I think about dual language. I mean, to have an entire elementary school that's devoted to dual language. And I think of the many great performances I've seen in the auditorium that feel like I went to Broadway rather than I went to the local high school. So those are hallmark identifiers that for Kuna School District. And I think there are two approaches. We can eat with funding. We can either sit back and let it kind of, the chips fall where they are with charter schools and private schools coming into the area and taking enrollment. And it's great that people have choices. Or we can look at what's coming to the area and say, here's an opportunity to make ourselves better, stronger, and more attractive, so that we're the choice for our parents, we're the choice for our students. When people are here, the funding is here. Maybe not enough funding, but more funding. I happen to know that every day 254 students leave this community and drive down the road and join the community I work for. They go for a variety of reasons. There's some that are, parents work there or whatever it is, but that's roughly $1.5 million a year that we lose because people are choosing other things. I want to make sure we harness our strengths, continue to provide academic excellence, great CTE programs, great extracurricular programs, and in doing so, our funding becomes more secure.
I said this in the last meeting, but these two guys have great answers. And the one thing that I would add to what they've already said is that we have to make Kuna the school of choice. We are living in an era in Idaho where school choice has been the buzzword for the last several years. And if we're going to compete with home schools, with charter schools, with private schools, we have to make sure that the programs that we have in the Kuna School District are the best programs around. so that parents choose Kuna because they want to, not because they have to. And so how do we do that when Idaho is not known for funding public education at a very high level? First of all, I think you have to get creative in what you're doing. In the district that I currently work in, funding is always a concern. So one of the things that we've encouraged and that I've done myself is we aggressively pursue grants. We aggressively pursue partnerships where we can bring funding into the school and provide opportunities for kids, possibly with internships later on, or placing kids in jobs as they graduate. One of the things I saw as we walked around the CTE buildings today is all of the banners that are hung up in these shops of the different sponsors that the Kuna School District has been able to go out and find. And so really, to be the school of choice, we have to have fabulous programs. And the reality is that every one of these programs that's listed in this question, there are kids in this district that need those programs. And so it's up to us to make sure that we do everything we can to think outside the box and provide these opportunities for our kids so that Kuna is the school of choice.
The next question is, what specific mistakes have you seen fast-growing school districts make, and what will you do differently in Kuna to prevent overcrowded classrooms and unnecessary tax burdens while growing responsibly?
This is a great question because I think there's a lot of school districts in Idaho that are asking the same one right now. And so I'm gonna focus on two different things just because of the time that we have. So I think the first mistake that districts make is they don't build trust before they go out and ask the community to support a bond or a levy initiative. And if you don't have that trust and you don't get your community behind you to support you, you're going to have the overcrowded classrooms, you're going to have aging facilities, because you're not going to be able to move those bonds forward. Because the bottom line is, at the end of the day, growth requires capital. And if you're going to grow and you're going to grow responsibly, you've got to have that capital and you've got to have the trust of the community moving forward. And the second thing that I believe is an issue is that districts don't plan. I think we do a really good job at saying, here's my 10-year plan and this is what we're going to do. But when you're in a fast-growing school district, what's your 3-year plan? Because the reality is, if you're going to pass a bond and build a school, you're 4 years in order to do that. And so what are you doing now to make sure that in 4 years you're ready to break ground and build that building? So those are the two biggest concerns. So just to give you an example, my first year in the Ririe School District, we're not experiencing the growth you are here, but we still developed a plan for what we were going to do when that growth hit. And we started by doing I had a company out of Boise actually come over and do a 10-year facilities audit for me. And we've used that data for the last 7 years to make our plans for what we're doing in the future. And we've hit the point now where our school board has just approved a bond initiative for an elementary school.
All right, thanks, Neil. This is quite a statement when the concern is we're growing so quickly. Do we have the resources? Do we have the capital in place in order to meet that growing need? I think one mistake that districts make, and have experienced some of this to a degree in the current district in the past that I worked in, it's important to go slow to go fast. Now, what I'm not saying is at a standstill for that, but what I am saying is that it takes time to build trust and plan, and to ensure that there are systems and processes in place before making knee-jerk reactions decisions. And some of those decisions around staffing allocations and budget adjustments and resource purchasing and larger 1-year, 5-year, 10-year plans, it takes time to build those, and there is time to pump the brakes a little bit and be very thoughtful with that. That being said, I think in summary, it requires long and short-term planning. not just the short term right away, or knowing that there's a long-term plan in place, but not being able to rely on that because there's immediate decisions that need to be made right away. I think where mistakes can happen is fixing the problem in the moment and not thinking about the long term, or forgetting about the long-term plan that's in place and staying true to that, knowing that you can make some of the adjustments currently, but you still need to hold true to that long-term plan.
Thank you, Neil. I want to begin by really applauding the school district on what they're doing now. Kuna School District really leads the way, and I would say in the state, in actively having conversations with developers and with city council and with the mayor on really tracking and seeing what's happening in terms of growth. I don't know of any other school district that is as forward thinking. We've perhaps, and I think about when we started it, probably made some mistakes in that we did go fast and we didn't have all of our research done, but we tried, and we tried to get involved, and that it has been wonderful to see that that has continued and evolved. That being said, when we see new homes, it doesn't necessarily mean 3 kids per home. And so there's good data out there in GIS tracking and in actual science to really plan and to accurately predict, maybe not 10 years, but certainly a couple, 3 or 4, to have a sense of what the needs would be. And so I would say fantastic work on engaging developers to know what's happening, and then fantastic work on asking for partners. And then finally, I would just say that that GIS planning, that hard work that goes on behind the scenes, can predict. We may have to begin looking beyond just standard bond planning, and we may have to look more in terms of partnerships, donations, community partners, to make sure that we have space for our students at the right time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Disruptive student behaviors are increasing in schools across Idaho and here in Kuna. What is your vision to address these concerns to support teachers, staff, students, and families?
Thank you, Brian. One, I want to recognize that in addressing disruptive student behaviors, it's important that proactively we talk about the importance of building trust and relationship with your families and within the community. And I say that because the tension that exists due to very visible behaviors that people can see or they hear about, they're at a school and they witness student behavior that way, that student still has a right to come to school. We're in public school. We have the duty and responsibility to establish expectations. We have the duty and responsibility to provide that level of support, but that student still gets a right to come to school in public education. And so in an opportunity to provide those support structures and what we do to move forward, it's important to build that relationship and that trust, that we clearly communicate the why. So there is trust that we are doing something about it, that we are addressing it, we are providing support, because we want that classroom to be a learning opportunity for all students in that classroom. And so that being said, it's important that we establish some very clear expectations for behavior. What does it look like in our classrooms, our hallways, in our parking areas, in our common spaces, in our fields? What does that look like? And really clearly teach that to students. And then celebrate when it happens, and it happens well. Our students, with that guidance and with those expectations, they'll meet that expectation. But what do we do when we address it when they are doing that behavior? And then what do we do when they're not? And to celebrate that and provide guidance. And then it's important to create support structures ahead of time for students that need that additional support and what that looks like. What can we do to create classroom environments and spaces that are safe for everybody to be, both emotionally safe and behaviorally safe, that students can be successful at that, and then how do we respond systemically when that doesn't take place? But again, I think at the end of the day, many of those behaviors are very visible. They're there when people are there visiting, people see that, and we want to be able to build that relationship and have that trust with families to let them know that we do care. We care about the student with the behavior, but for the students that aren't, to create that environment for them as well.
Brian, I will start by saying that safe classrooms are non-negotiable. Making sure that that classroom is safe for the students, perhaps in the classroom, but also the student that is experiencing disruptive behavior, sometimes caused by trauma, sometimes caused by other things, is essential. And so we have to put our efforts in supporting those staff and those professionals within the district that know how to deal with those situations and know how to help that teacher and help those students. And so we need to support it with funding, with budget. We need to support it with staffing. I want to just close by sharing a small story. Marcus and I had the honor of creating a small school within a school within the district we work, and that particular program has we remodeled a wing of an elementary school that was underutilized, and it has become a place for those students that something's happening in their life, and they have a chance to not only decompress, but be with professionals that know how to help them re-enter a gen ed classroom in a safe and manageable way. We each had our own roles, and it's been beautiful to see that. That's not the only solution, but it's a solution that we have found helpful for that handful of students.
So this is definitely a real problem that I believe almost every school in Idaho is facing right now. 2 years ago, the school board in my district gave a direction to the admin team, and they wanted to see a decrease in major student incidents in the school. So in our handbook, we have minor incidents and major incidents. And so with the admin team, we sat down and we rewrote the student handbook. We took that to the board for approval. They were on board with what we wanted to do. And so starting 2 years ago, principals at the opening assembly went through the handbook explaining expectations very explicitly to our students. Along with the expectations, they also went over consequences. And then the second part of that plan that we developed was to make sure that we intervened early when behaviors began happening. And what we saw is that by intervening early and supporting our teachers, we were able to catch those behaviors before they turned into something where the teachers were to the point that they needed to go down to the office and be sacrificed. So, and I say that jokingly a little bit, but the fact is that teachers are asked to do more now dealing with behaviors than ever before. But by setting clear expectations, by intervening early, and then supporting our teachers when they needed help, we were able to reduce those major incidents in the school district and make our schools safer for our kids, because ultimately our teachers or our students need structure, our teachers need support, and our parents need partners when working with their kids.
How will you measure whether Kuna School District is improving academically under your leadership? And what is your philosophy of academic leadership and accountability?
Thank you, Carrie. I will measure academic leadership by paying attention to whether or not we're becoming the first choice in education. When it comes to academics, exactly, we're going to measure early literacy. We know that when students can read by 3rd grade, their chances for academic success later on goes up. We know that when they graduate from high school, their chance of ending up incarcerated goes down, and the inverse is true. So we're gonna measure very closely 3rd grade literacy rates and make sure that we are on track. We're gonna pay attention to math achievement and make sure we're above the state average. We're going to pay attention to graduation rates. I said in one of our forums that I think we should feel good about the fact that we have a strong graduation rate. It's not 100% yet, but it's certainly higher than many in the area, and it's higher than many that are in the top 10 schools in terms of size in the district or in the state. And we're going to pay attention to not just those scores, but I think when you pay attention to CTE certifications, we know that when a student is involved in CTE, their chance of graduating is in the area of 98%. So you get a student involved and you get a student working at something they're passionate about, they're going to graduate. So we're going to pay attention to all of those things when it comes to academics.
So I think when you're looking at how you're going to measure whether the academics are improving or not, I think you've got to be careful with what data you focus on, because to look at simply an ISAT score as to whether a student is proficient, I think is a poor way to tell whether a school is being successful academically. And the reason I say that is a student takes the ISAT math test on May 15th at 9:30 a.m. and to judge what that student knows by one snapshot in time, I don't believe it gives the whole picture. And so one of the things that I look at in my own district when we're looking at whether academically we're succeeding is we look at trends over time. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to compare the third grade from last year with the third grade from this year, because that's not apples to apples. I'm going to look at how kids are growing over time, and I like the idea that was already stated, that we look at how many kids do we have involved in CTE, how many kids do we have in fine arts, and these other programs, but ultimately. When we want to see whether or not the district is actually improving education or we're falling behind, we have to look at those growth trends. As far as accountability goes, I think as an educational leader, it's important that when you do have a group that is struggling, you sit down with that group and you go over all this data that I just talked about. You look at all the trends that you see, and then you sit down and you say, what do you need in order to be successful with your students? And then that is my job as the administrative leader to provide those opportunities and then to reassess later.
All right. Thank you, Gary. I shared with the team that was here earlier in the previous meeting that it's about measuring what matters as an academic leader. And what I mean by that is, in education, we have a tremendous amount of data. We've got numbers of students involved in programs, we've got attendance data, we've got behavioral data, we've got all kinds of data. Looking at the data through the lens of what matters most to student success is incredibly important in my philosophy as an academic leader. I think in looking at those trends and then looking at cohort data, which is data as a student progresses through grade level, is incredibly important. Student achievement data, I think that sometimes accountability gets a bad rap. I think accountability, I am accountable to student achievement. The measure of systems that are in place, the measure and the strength of our instructional systems is measured by some of our common assessments on what that looks like. To weigh everything on that one assessment, like one ISAT score or one IRI data point, isn't effective. But to look at trends over time, I should be accountable to that. Third grade literacy rate is important. It sets the stage for a student's future success. Problem solving in math and in ELA as measured by the ISAT is important. It's our common assessment. It's our measuring and our temperature check as we move forward through that. It's not the only one. It's not the only data point we should be looking at, because there's a tremendous amount of data out there that shows what matters. The other piece to that is measuring what matters in student supports and opportunities and eliminating barriers. What I mean by that is, how many students are involved in athletics? How many students are involved in an activity or in a club? What is the connectedness ratio for students who are out there in our buildings? And we want to feel connected, because connected students are successful students, both academically and socially. What are the numbers in CTE programs? What are the numbers of pathways and CTE diplomas? How many dollars have we used in AO funding and advanced opportunity funding, and what launch funding have our students secured? Those are all data points we want to look at very carefully and closely, and really looking at what measuring what matters and what's leveraging our students' success.
All right, for our final question tonight, if you were hired as our next superintendent, describe what you would do in your first 90 to 100 days, starting with you, Mr. B.
All right, I feel like I've already answered this question a little bit, so this might be brief. I go back to what I said in my first answer, is that my first 90 to 100 days are going to be listening, learning, and then aligning. And again, what I mean by that is, as I work in the community, as I have an opportunity to visit with business owners, with community members, with educational staff, I'm going to ask the 3 questions. What is working? What are your concerns? And what can we do to build your trust in the school district? That information is going to focus my next 12 to 18 months as I sit down with the leadership team in the Kuna School District. We review that information, and we align our focus to what's really important in the community.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Elliot. My 90-day plan's purpose will be around listening, learning, and building trust. I think the opportunity to listen, I was given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So the opportunity to learn from you, to wonder what you think the successes are, to dig in deep, and to have those important conversations and to be present in those conversations will be important in the first 90 days. I want to look for and uncover those areas to celebrate for success and identify those quick wins. And then that'll help us establish those steady and clear direction in moving forward and what it looks like. I do have a plan for that and some thought, and that is exactly what I'm looking at right here on the table. What is that 90-day plan? And it includes things like advisory councils and opportunities and groups to meet and gather and garner their input over the next 90 days. I can tell you I'll be very visible. I'll be very busy out in buildings, reoccurring timeframes where I'm out in buildings, within classrooms, at schools, having conversations with kids, with teachers, with staff, and with parents when they drive up. I'll be at events like Get to Know Mr. Myers events, things like Kuna Days, things like opportunities where we can sit down together and have some informal discussions. And I'm going to ask, how's it going? Tell me, what are the successes? What are you most proud of when you send your child to school? And what can we take another look at? What might that look like? What was the most recent interaction that you've had? I want to incorporate student voice in that tremendously. Get to know our student councils, get to know our students, greet students in the hall. We had a great opportunity to do some of that today, and it's very energizing and uplifting, and it starts right away. And then, of course, at the end of that 90-day time frame, it's important that I'm transparent and provide a report to the trustees around what were those findings. What did I hear? What did it look like? And who did I meet with?
Thank you, Elliot. I want to begin by saying if it would be if I would receive the honor of being selected as superintendent, that work would begin for me tomorrow. That work literally begins tomorrow for me. That work, when I did my graduate degree at Gonzaga, I did most of it from 4 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. I did it on lunch, and I did it on the weekends. And so my pledge is that work would begin tomorrow, and I work 8 miles down the road. Those lunches where I would begin to listen would begin almost immediately. July 1st, though, is a reality where contracts begin and people get to work full time. And so my 90-day plan really focuses around beginning by listening, and then by listening to groups, by listening to administrators, and certainly spending time with individual board members to get to know them and to get to know the direction that they wish to see the district go. I would say when we get to late July, mid-July, we're turning our attention to a strong start. We're looking at the first day teachers are back, I believe is August 10th. We're looking at the first day of school, which I believe is August 14th or 13th. We're gonna be working hard as a leadership team to get off to a great start. And then finally, the final months, or not the final months, September really becomes a time to stabilize and strengthen. By the time we've listened, also reported back to the board about what we've learned together and what I've heard, then we ultimately find a way to stabilize and to have a successful school year and to plan out the coming years.
Thank you.
What's up, sir?
What are you gonna do today? Nice job.
What to do tomorrow?